in the House.
I have reservations.
I want to thank you, Lascar Cora.
Reservations will be noted.
Right. I have to be best behaviour. I'm trying to organise your business.
That'll not be noted.
That'll be one in a row.
Trying to organise your business for next week.
30 seconds flat.
I want to ask the Minister for details on the current and projected costs for the rollout of the National Broadband Plan and the status of that plan. And when do you think, Minister, that rural people, rural business people, householders, school goers, farmers, anybody else, business, will have some modicum of a broadband service that they can transact their business? And if you will make a statement on your commitments in this matter, please.
Minister, question number 3.
Miss earlier exchanges that might have answered some of his questions, so forgive me if it's a bit repetitive. As I've outlined in response to earlier questions, my department has received a final tender submission from the bidder in respect of the ongoing procurement process of the National Broadband Plan. My priority is to bring the procurement process to a fair and impartial conclusion as quickly as possible, and I will bring a recommendation to Government in this regard in the coming weeks. The level of subsidy required to bring high-speed broadband services to the 540,000 premises in the National Broadband Plan state intervention area will be determined through this procurement process. Until the assessment is concluded, I am not in a position to formulate a recommendation to Government, and I am not yet in a position to discuss cost. With regard to the completion of the build of the infrastructure, should a contract be awarded and signed, deployment will commence at the earliest possible opportunity, with activity across all counties in the first year of deployment. Deployment is likely to take some years. In light of this, in the event of a contract is awarded, the bidder will be required to provide almost 300 broadband connection points across all counties in the first year of deployment. These broadband connection points have been selected by local authorities and are locations of community importance such as schools and community centres.
Deputy, 1 minute.
God, Minister, you said you didn't want to be repetitive. There's nothing to repeat there, because there's nothing in it. There's nothing in it. Minister, as the motion we discussed earlier this week made clear, the escalating estimate of the total cost for delivery of the National Broadband Plan and the lack of clarity regarding those costs is a real concern, and your answer there concerns me even further. We also know from the motion debate that the structure of the sole remaining bidding entity has changed substantially over the course of the process, and a significant concerns now exist regarding the robustness of the National Broadband Plan and the structure of the sole remaining bidder. And, Minister, what happens if we have legal challenges? As I said during the debate during the week, I'm a small contractor and I tender for projects, and the tender process has to be robust, and you can't tender with one person. It just doesn't happen to one company. So I wish it would happen. We'd have great fun, all of us. It would be a great country, but this is a mess. A right unholy mess, Minister, and you know that. And it's just not good enough for the businesses in my area, from Carrick-on-Shore up to Nina. And the business in Nina this morning on to me, a substantial business, long-standing, no broadband service, is 350 yards away from me, he can't get it.
Have to hear. Minister, 1 minute.
I think I did indicate that I won't be in a position to clarify costs until we have completed the process, and I think the Deputy will understand that people who are considering tenders don't go talking about the tenders ahead of a decision, and I think that is normal practice. In terms of his concern about the change in the makeup of the bidding consortium, I would point out that there has been a very detailed pre-qualification process, and any change in any makeup of the consortium or indeed of the contractors has to go through that process. It has an evaluation committee with both looking at technical, commercial and compliance requirements, so that when a change occurred, they would look at the financial standing of as a result of the change, the technical and professional capability of the change, the suitability from a compliance perspective. So each time, if there was a change, those tests had to be run, and the state had to be satisfied that any change met with those requirements.
Final question, Deputy McGrath.
I'm worried this is going to turn out like the Children's Hospital. You said it's normal process for tender process that you don't disclose prices. This is not normal. This is abnormal, because we have only one bidder. So, there's no political or commercial sensitivity here. The only problem I have here is the taxpayers have been fleeced and the homeowners are getting no service. Following the review conducted by the independent process auditor, Mr. Peter Smith, Minister, you made it clear that there will be a recommendation to Government as to whether or not to appoint Graham McCourt, the led consortium, as preferred bidder. This is riddled with opportunities for legal litigation. And the people that I represent, and around the country, as I said, from Puckane right across to Ballincarry and elsewhere, everywhere. Homeowners, schoolgoers who want to fill out get information for courses and fill their CEO application forms, farmers and ordinary business people. And we talk about giving hubs in and giving community access. This is fascinating, Minister. Okay. It's going nowhere. You're down a cul-de-sac. It's not normal. It's abnormal, and you should do something about it, because it could end up in the High Court or Supreme Court. Minister. You can't deal with one bidder. If you know anything about bidding, you know that.
Minister.
Or tendering, sorry.
Minister's 1 minute.
We've had a competitive process, and in the early stages there were more than one bidder, and we have had to conduct that with some of those who entered the process withdrawing. That has been the reality. But as the result of that, in order to meet the concerns that your constituents are expressing to you, and were expressed very eloquently during the debate here the other night, we need to test the robustness of the technology, the deployment strategy, the terms of the contract, the governance, the protection of the state interest, the terms for connection of individuals who get connected, the fulfilment of the brief as set out. These are things that we have to conduct due diligence. Because there is just one bidder, we have to make sure that the state interest is protected. So the care that my department and its officials are taking is proper in light of the concerns that your constituents are expressing to you, because you would not thank me if we did not do that robust evaluation, and that's the reality. You'd be the first to come in here and say, why didn't you evaluate this, why didn't you evaluate that? You know, that's what you'd be.
We're going to move on. Next question. Deputy McGrath. Deputy McGrath. The House facilitated you to intervene